In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, the job market is not exactly thriving. Most people are doomed to spend their entire lives doing backbreaking, soul-numbing work, or serving as disposable meat shields in some Imperial Guard regiment. And yet, somehow, even in a galaxy drowning in endless war, an ordinary human can still land a halfway decent gig. Emphasis on halfway. Good is an extremely relative word here. We're talking about the tastiest slice of a very moldy pie. Still, when you stack these rolls up against scraping sludge in a hive city sump, or charging a tyrannid swarm armed with a flashlight, las gun, they start to look downright luxurious. Today, we're counting down the top 10 best jobs a simple mortal can hope for in the Imperium of Man. If you're a lowly Imperial citizen with big dreams and probably a bigger death wish, these are the positions you'd pray to the God Emperor to land. Each entry on this list comes with a unique mix of perks and pitfalls, a dollop of privilege and a heaping side of danger. After all, this is the 41st millennium. Nothing's truly safe or easy. But hey, at least these 10 lucky professions beat being a faceless servitor or an unlucky conscript. We'll start from number 10 and work our way to number 1. Stick around, because the higher we go, the more power and peril we'll see. And trust me, by the time we hit the top 3, best job will translate to most insane responsibilities in the most Warhammery way possible. So, steel your soul, say a prayer to the Emperor, and let's dive in. Here are the 10 best jobs an average human might actually get in the Imperium of Man, with a lot of luck, talent, and probably a few bribes to the right officials. And remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But if you play your cards right, there might also be a steady paycheck and a comfortable chair. Let's begin. Number 10, Administratum Clerk, Bureaucrat Extraordinaire. Yes, you heard that right. We're starting strong with the unsung hero of the Imperium's paperwork mountain, the Adeptus Administratum Clerk. Shocked, in a galaxy where most job descriptions boil down to die horribly for the Emperor, being a glorified scribe is practically a wellness retreat. You won't earn glory, you won't earn respect, but you might actually make it to retirement with all your limbs and minimal extra holes, provided you don't accidentally misplace a decimal on a High Lord's tithe report and get executed for creative accounting. It's dull, it's thankless, and it's one of the safest, most stable existences a human can realistically hope for. Picture the life of an administratum clerk. You're assigned to some relatively secure world, maybe even holy terror itself, the bureaucratic heart of the Imperium. Every day, you shuffle into a titanic hab-block office complex that makes a hive city look positively quaint. You sit at your station beneath dim lumen globes, half of them dead, none of them replaced in living memory. You hunch over coitator terminals, surrounded by teetering piles of parchment and data slates that form a maze of paperwork. Your spine screams as you key in endless strings of numbers, cross-check tithe records, stamp forms in triplicate, and file everything into the correct incense-scented archive folder. It's monotony, so deep it could make a servitor weep. But, and this is the crucial part, you are indoors. No orc is actively trying to cleave you in half. No chaos cultist is currently attempting to set you on fire. Well, unless this particular week's heresy has really gotten out of hand in your department. The gravest daily threat is a paper cut, or maybe slowly wrecking your lungs on dust and centuries-old parchment fumes. By 40,000 standards, that's basically a luxury spa package. Most administrative clerks live where they work. Entire families are born, toil, and die in the same colossal complex. Yes, your HAB suite is probably a 2-by-2-meter coffin box tucked among a billion identical cells in some megaspire. Yes, your diet will largely consist of corpse starch rations and recaf, the 40K knockoff of coffee that tastes like burnt rubber and regret. And yes, the highlight of your week might be when the scribe 2 desks over keels over from a heart attack halfway through a 19-hour shift, and the supervisor servitor grants everyone a generous 15-minute break while the body is dragged away. It's not thrilling, but think about the alternative. If you weren't shuffling parchment for the administratum, you might be on the front lines getting chewed up by tyrannids or vaporized by plasma fire. Suddenly, a dead-end office job with a side of crushing ennui starts to look appealing, doesn't it? You even have a faint chance at climbing the ladder. Maybe, if you're industrious and unlucky enough to survive, you'll be promoted to senior scribe with your very own skull-shaped stamp to approve documents. Dare to dream. The truly driven and long-lived might ascend to bureau supervisor or adjutant to some minor functionary. Sure, that means more responsibility and more blame when anything goes wrong, but it could also mean a bigger HAB room, a whole 8 square meters, and maybe even your own coitator terminal instead of sharing. Luxury. There are hidden perks too. Administrative archives are hordes of information, even if most of it is mind-numbing. But in the 40K universe, knowledge is power. A savvy clerk might spot a clerical anomaly that diverts an extra food ration to their department, quietly appropriate a few higher quality pens from an incoming shipment, or discreetly reroute a cushioned chair meant for a sector governor's office into their own cubicle. Scratch off the gold trim and the aquila, and no one will know. Meanwhile, your lumbar will thank you. And let's talk climate control. Most administrative record holes are kept at tightly regulated temperature and humidity to preserve the documents. That means you work in actual controlled air, while some poor Imperial guardsman is either melting in a death world jungle or freezing in a void-chilled trench. You're shivering only because someone set the archive cogitators to slightly uncomfortable. Now, to be clear, this job will grind down whatever soul you started with. The Imperial bureaucracy is so vast and impersonal that whole departments have spent centuries toiling away at tasks no one remembers the origin of. There's a famously tragic little story about a department that diligently updated population reports for a planet that had been exterminated a century earlier. No one told them, so they just kept filing statistics for ghosts. You might end up as the poor wretch meticulously tracking promethium allotments for a regiment that's been dead and gone for decades, because the form authorizing their demise never made it through the system. Darkly hilarious, absolutely. Lethal, not usually, unless you laugh out loud about it in front of the wrong person, say an inquisitor conducting a surprise audit. Then suddenly, your safe office job might become a lot shorter. As for the stereotype, the pale, stooped, pencil-necked clerk with thick lenses or blinking bionic augments, shuffling through corridors in worn monastic robes. Yeah, that could be you. Sure, you might have wished to be a space marine when you were a kid, but trust me, this is attainable, and you won't have to get surgically implanted with 19 organs and go fight demons. You'll lose some muscle tone. All right, all muscle tone. You'll squint at tiny script all day, and you'll probably start speaking mostly in acronyms and administrative jargon like Form 32B. Stroke Alpha request for Terran calendar adjustment. But you'll be alive, in a universe where living past 30 is an achievement for soldiers. An administrative adept can push 60-70 years easy. In fact, some aged clerks retire. Yes, that's a thing, and spend their twilight years peacefully cataloging prayer scrolls in a back room or tutoring younger scribes in the art of saying no very politely to petitioners. One more upside: nobody really tries to assassinate a random clerk. You're not high profile enough for intrigue, unless you stumble on some heretical ledger and go snooping. Don't do that. You'll likely never be targeted by rebels or enemy agents. Compare that to being, say, a famous general or inquisitor. They've got targets on their backs constantly. You're practically invisible. And in the Imperium, anonymity is a shield as strong as ceramite. To sum up, an administrative clerk is living the civilian dream in 40K. It might feel like a dystopian desk job, because it is, but it's a relatively secure dystopian desk job. Billions of others would kill for your position. Actually, literally, they might if you advertised how safe you feel. So, keep your head down, stamp those papers, mutter your daily litanies to the omniscience of filing, and enjoy the simple fact that you have a roof, a routine, and a roughly 0% chance of being devoured by a hive tyrant on any given day. In the Imperium, that's about as best as a normal human's job gets. Just for context, 8 square meters is about 86 square feet. In the administrator's eyes, that's a penthouse. Number 9. Adeptus Arbit's officer or Imperial law enforcement. Ever fancied yourself a futuristic Judge Dredd? The Adeptus Arbits might be for you. They're the Imperium's elite law enforcers, not to be confused with your local planet's cops. No, the Arbits are more like federal judges, SWAT, and executioners rolled into one, answerable only to the bigwigs on Terra. If a planetary governor or bureaucrat is breaking Imperial law, the Arbits step in to deliver justice, often of the instant and lethal variety. As an Arbits officer, you're not a peacekeeper. You're an instrument of Imperial law, feared and respected across the galaxy. And unlike the average guardsman, you're not thrown into open battle against alien legions, at least not regularly. You're busy busting crime, crushing sedition, and keeping the heart of the Imperium pumping by ensuring tithes and laws are observed. It's dangerous, sure, but it's a privileged danger. Let's set the scene. You're a newly minted arbitrator. That's what they call the rank and file in the Arbits. You've got a slick suit of carapace armor with the Aquila emblazed on the chest, a visor helm that can stop small arms fire and make you look intimidating as heck, and you're armed with a combat shotgun that can turn a cultist into red mist at close range. Your standard kit likely includes a shock maul. Think electrified baton for crowd control by way of skull cracking, and a suppression shield, a portable slab of armor to push through riots. Maybe a cyber mastiff, a nasty cybernetic attack dog at your heel if you're doing patrols. You are in essence a walking symbol of the Lex Imperialis, the Emperor's law. On many worlds, the mere sight of your black armored form is enough to make citizens scatter off the streets and criminals wet themselves. A day on the job could be as dramatic or as routine as fate allows. In a quiet posting, you might be overseeing a courthouse, reviewing evidence of high crimes, or planning a raid on a den of smugglers who've been siphoning off Imperial tithe supplies. Yes, paperwork follows you here too. After all, convicting heretics requires documentation, even if it's just to update the execution log.
But unlike the endless monotony of the administratum, every case file in Arbitus work tells a juicy story. Treason, murder, corruption, cult activity. You're reading the worst of humanity's sins, and then you get to go out and actually punish it. When the call comes, you muster with your squad in the fortress precinct's arming chamber. Within minutes, you're piled into a repressor, an Arbit's riot tank, or screaming through the hive on a grav chute deployment towards the mission zone. Maybe a hive gang uprising is threatening an administrative facility. Time for a no-knock entry into their stronghold. Grenades first storm in behind your shield wall. Shotgun blasts in disciplined volleys. The gangers are well armed, but they're no match for well-trained arbitrators in formation. Within an hour it's over. The survivors, if any, are in cuffs. The ringleaders have new ventilation in their skulls, courtesy of you and your comrades.
Restored, you even get to be a little heroic. Perhaps you dragged an injured fellow officer to safety mid-firefight, or you talked down a panicking administrum, adept to get out of the crossfire. That combination of brute force and measured control is the Arbite's way. On another occasion, you might find yourself investigating something more subtle. Say, shipments of unauthorized weapons, hinting a rebellion is brewing among the workers. Arbites aren't detectives in the classical sense. They prefer to smash doors than sleuth around. But someone's got to connect the dots. So, you do some digging, lean on an informant here, examine cargo records there, and bust a few heads in the underhive for information. Eventually, you piece together that a PDF colonel is selling weapons to a cult. This is above your pay grade to resolve quietly, so you kick it upstairs. Next thing you know, a whole Arbite strike force, including judges, senior Arbites, mobilized to arrest said colonel and his conspirators. It turns into a siege of their compound. Lass and auto fire pepper your shield as you batter down the gates. But you've got the Emperor's mandate and a righteous fury. Fast forward, the colonel is on his knees bloodied while a robed judge reads his sentence. Guilty of sedition and arms trafficking. Sentence equals death, carried out immediately. The judge nods to you. You step forward and with one pull of your trigger administer the Emperor's law. Is it grim? Absolutely. But there's something deeply satisfying. One might even say purposeful, about being the hand that metes out justice in a corrupt, crumbling world. Among the hopelessness of the Imperium, Arbites believe in the law. It's harsh and unforgiving, but it's order amidst chaos. They have absolute conviction that what they do keeps mankind from devouring itself even faster. If you're a fan of dry sarcasm, by the way, Arbite's duty offers ample opportunity. You'll see some dumb criminals and depraved schemes, and an Arbite's officer often develops a wry, deadpan humor. Heretics these days, you might sigh, after the 20th nutjob cultist in a week tries to stab you with a rusty spoon during booking. No respect for quality workmanship. Your partner, maybe a veteran arbitrator, chuckles under his skull-visored helmet as he plucks the spoon away and tases the lunatic. In a job this severe, you appreciate the little laughs. Risks. Oh, plenty. Arbite's precincts on especially restive worlds are basically little fortresses under constant threat. If a full-blown rebellion erupts, Arbites are often the first targets. The rebels know that as long as the judges hold the courthouse, the Imperium's rule isn't broken. Many Arbite squads have made last stands when planets revolted, holding out against overwhelming odds until relief arrived. Or they all died to a man, declaring, "The Emperor's law is eternal," as the mob overran them. There's a reason Arbites are sometimes called the last line. They don't give up ever, because surrendering law and order means sinking into anarchy and heresy. And Arbites would rather die, even in normal times. Kicking down doors in hive gang layers is a good way to catch a bullet. Arbite's armor is strong, but you're not a space marine. A lucky auto gun burst, or a point-blank shotgun can and will kill you. Every Arbeits precinct has a memorial wall of those who fell in the line of duty, often with a succinct note like Trooper, third class via slain by bomb during Naro tribe crackdown. Hive Primus, 998 M41. He upheld the law. You accept that risk when you put on the badge. But let's consider quality of life when not on a mission. Arbeits facilities are actually pretty well maintained and supplied by Imperium standards. You get decent quarters, meals, weaponry that actually works, and training that hones you into shape. You're not sleeping in a trench or scrambling for ammo. The Adeptus Terra makes sure its enforcers are kept at a baseline level of readiness. Off-duty, you might even have access to recreational areas within the precinct. Perhaps a sparring gym, a small shrine for prayer, maybe even a rec room where you can play Rexide, the chest-like game, or read the latest bulletin of High Court rulings. It's a regimented life, but a fulfilling one, if you have the mindset for it. Comradeship in the Arbeits is famously strong. You rely on each other in tight situations constantly, so it forges family-like bonds. Arbeits teams often have long-nerving members who know each other's moves and moods instinctively. That closeness is a rare comfort in an uncaring galaxy. Plus, as an Arbeits, you do have a career path, survive and excel, and you could be promoted to proctor, a squad leader, or even judge in charge of a whole precinct or jurisdiction. Judges are like grim law-obsessed captains, who not only lead raids but also sit in judgment on trials. Picturing yourself banging a gavel and pronouncing sentence on a corrupt noble or a cult leader you dragged in. Not a bad perk. Some particularly distinguished judges get called to Terra or other key worlds to join higher ranks, perhaps training new Arbeits or contributing to sector-wide law policies. It's one of the few ways a common person might climb into positions that interact with imperial governors, or even inquisitors, who by the way frequently cooperate with Arbeits when investigating government corruption or cult activity. An inquisitor likes having a crack team of Arbeits to back them up on a tough OP. At the end of the solar day, being in the Adeptus Arbeits is one of the best jobs around for a normal human, because it gives you purpose, authority, and a fighting chance. You are feared by the guilty, respected by the dutiful, and entrusted with keeping the Imperium's colossal house of cards from collapsing at the local level, and you do so with bolt rounds and beatdowns. As the old paraphrased saying goes, the law is harsh, but it is the law. In the Arbeits, you are that harsh law. If you have a strong sense of justice, and perhaps a streak of aggressive zeal, you'll thrive. You get to really stick it to the bad guys, and not in the vague way a guardsman shoots at abstract enemies. No, you will personally drag some scumbag in front of a judge, even if that judge is just you with a book of law in hand, and say, by the authority of the Lex Imperialis, you have been found wanting punishment, death, and then carry it out. In a galaxy gone mad, there's a brutal clarity in that. So number 9, Adeptus Arbeits Officer, enforcing the Emperor's laws one cracked skull at a time, and loving it. It's not a cushy job, but if you want to matter, and still retain the sweet knowledge that you're not being sent to fight tyrannid swarms on day one, the Arbeits life might just be for you. Remember the Arbeits creed, we are the wall upon which the wave of heresy breaks. If that thought gives you a little shiver of pride, then polish that armor, load that shotgun, and keep your citation quill handy for the paperwork after. The Emperor's justice is in your hands. Number 8, Adepta Sororitas, Sister of Battle, Nuns with Guns. That's the pathy nickname often given to the Adepta Sororitas, and it's not wrong. The Sisters of Battle are the militant arm of the Ecclesiarchy Imperial Church, and they're wholly comprised of fanatically devout,
power-armored women, ready to set the galaxy on fire for the Emperor. Literally, they love flamethrowers. Now, being a sister of battle is not exactly a safe job. You're on the front lines of some of the most intense anti-heretic, anti-Xenos operations. But here's why it cracks the best jobs list. As a normal human, you cannot become an artist space marine, but you can become the next best thing, a Sororitas. You get excellent training, top-notch gear, power armor, and bolt guns aren't issued to just anyone, and the unshakable backing of the Imperial faith. You are in essence one of the most elite warriors that a baseline human can aspire to be. And unlike the average guardsman, you're not treated as expendable cannon fodder. You're part of a small valued sisterhood of heroes lauded by billions of the faithful. Plus, and this is a big plus for some, you get to indulge in a bit of righteous pyromania without anyone blinking. Purge those heretics, sister. Let's dive into the life of a sister of battle. First, recruitment. Many Sororitas come from the Schola Progenium, the orphanages run by the ecclesiarchy that train children of imperial servants who died in service. If you're an orphan girl who shows exceptional zeal, discipline, and maybe a knack for marksmanship or swordplay, you might be channeled into the Adeptus Sororitas. You'll remember the day your drill abbot told you that you have been chosen. It's basically the Emperor saying, you, yes, you will be my instrument. From that point on, it's like joining a convent, a very, very hardcore convent. Your days as a novitiate are filled with prayers at dawn, combat training by mid-morning, hymns singing while cleaning bolters at noon, more combat training in the afternoon, perhaps learning squad tactics or practicing with a holy flamer, vespers in the evening, then maintenance on your gear by candlelight before bed. They will drill the faith so deep into you that you'll swear you can feel the God Emperor's presence guiding your aim. Sisters don't have psychic powers per se. Those are I no, since the ecclesiarchy is suspicious of psychers, but their faith is so strong, it sometimes manifests as miraculous resilience or effect. There are tales of sisters shrugging off wounds that should kill them, or their flames burning brighter when they're chanting a war hymn. The Emperor's subtle hand, perhaps. Once fully initiated, you don the sacred power armor of your order. It's not quite as heavy as Space Marine plate. You're still human, and can't wear something that bulky, but it's excellent protection adorned with holy symbols, scripture parchments, and your order's colors. You'll receive your weapon, most likely a bolter, the iconic 75 caliber explosive round rifle that turns heretics into chunky salsa, or a flamer, which sisters are especially fond of for when you absolutely need to bathe a whole crowd of unbelievers in purifying fire. Meltac guns, tank-busting heat rays, and heavy bolters come later, when you specialize. And of course the Sororitas' classic melee weapon, the chainsword, often with gilded etchings of prayers that revs with the Emperor's fury as you cleave through traitors. Sisters of battle fight with a certain style, simultaneously brutal and beautiful. They often sing or shout litanies as they charge to an onlooker. A squad of them advancing is awe-inspiring, their voices harmonizing in a battle chant. Bolter reports thunder in measured rhythm, and the golden fleur-de-lis icons on their armor catching light through the smoke of war. Now the Sororitas are organized into different orders. The main ones, called Orders Militant, are like chapters/regiments. For example, the Order of Our Martyred Lady, or the Order of the Bloody Rose, etc. Each has its own history and vibe. Martyr Lady sisters wear black armor and are known for their resilient, unyielding spirit. They often fight on even when odds are bad, preferring glorious last stands to retreats. Bloody Rose sisters are hot-headed and aggressive, charging with flamers and melter at close range. There's a flavor for everyone, as long as everyone's flavor is devoted and deadly. There are also non-militant orders, Hospitaller, Dialogus, etc., who are medics, scholars and such. But when people say Sisters of Battle, they mean the militant ones. Let's say you're a battle sister in the Order of the Valorous Heart, known for stoicism and endurance. Your order gets deployed to a planet in the throes of heresy. The governor has renounced the imperial creed and is dabbling in chaos. This calls for a war of faith. A cardinal of the Ecclesia declares that this planet must be brought back to the Emperor's light. And who better to do that than the Sorites? You arrive via dropship, filing out in disciplined ranks, singing Dominus Imperator, an imperial psalm as shells explode in the distance. The Sorites don't sneak around. They're a living reminder to the heretic that faith will kick in their front door. Alongside some loyal guard regiments, you begin the crusade to take the planet city by city. In one engagement, your squad is tasked with clearing a hate block held by
cultists. Advancing under fire, you experience that mix of terror and elation unique to battle. Bullets ping off your armor. A few bruise you, one might crack a plate, but you keep marching, bolter roaring in your hands. A cultist leaps from cover, swinging an axe, screaming profanities about his dark gods. In response, you calmly belt out the final lines of the Canticle of Absolution and squeeze the trigger. The cultist evaporates in a pink mist of blood and shrapnel. The Emperor's judgment, you announce coldly, stepping over the mess. That's a normal Tuesday for a sister of battle. The camaraderie in a Soritas order is intense. They truly call each other sisters and mean it. Raised together, trained together, fought together. The love is real. Sure, there's friendly rivalry between orders. A sister of the Argent Shroud might tease a sister of the Ebon Chalice about an ancient battle honor, etc. But in the field, they operate like a single righteous entity. You won't find a tighter unit among normal humans. And the leadership. Canonesses, the leaders of an order, are some of the most formidable humans alive. Women who have fought hundreds of battles, often bearing relics or blessed war gear. Serving under a wise, battle-hardened canoness is both terrifying and inspiring. She might demand the impossible, but then go out and personally achieve it with you. Many sisters have a bit of a hero worship for their canoness, who in turn cares deeply for her charges, even if her version of care is making sure you don't slack on your weapon maintenance ever. Now, one might wonder, aside from the whole fighting and possibly dying gloriously aspect, what makes this a best job? Plenty of people fight and die in the Imperium. What sets the Soritas apart positively? Two major things, equipment and respect. We touched on gear. Having powered armor and a bolter as a regular human is like being given the keys to a tank when others ride a bicycle. You're far better protected and armed than almost any baseline human soldier. That keeps you alive longer, which is a perk in itself. Also, Soritas's gear is lovingly maintained, often handcrafted by the Order's armorers or the Mechanicus. And even minor sisters get war gear of a high quality that a PDF sergeant would drool over. No one's giving you a rusty Alas's gun and saying good luck. They give you the good stuff. Respect. The Sisters of Battle are beloved by the pious masses and feared by the impious. To the average imperial citizen, seeing a battle sister is like seeing one of the Emperor's avenging angels in person. You're a figure from their devotional stained glass windows come to life. If you walk through a crowd when not actively engaged in burning heretics, you might have people reaching out just to touch your armor's hem hoping for a blessing. That adoration can be pretty gratifying, if a little awkward for some modest sisters. Unlike being a faceless guardsman in an army of millions, as a sister, you're part of a relatively small elite sorority. Your deeds will be noticed. There are volumes of ecclesiarchy texts recounting individual sisters' acts of valor. If you martyr yourself spectacularly, you might even become a saint. Seriously, many imperial saints are canonized sororities who died heroically. The possibility of literal sainthood post-mortem. Talk about an honor for the faithful. Living conditions when not on the battlefield are Spartan, but in a chosen way. As a sister, you live in a convent or fortress monastery of your order. It's usually a beautiful, if austere place. Lots of statues, candlelit chapels, cloisters for prayer. You likely sleep in a simple bunk or cell, maybe with a small footlocker of personal items. Many sisters don't own much beyond a few holy books and maintenance kits. They're kind of like futuristic medieval nuns in that sense. Food is basic but adequate. No starvation rations here, they need you in top shape. You get exercise, drilling, communal worship, which they deeply enjoy. It's energizing for them, and a clear routine. For someone devout, this is a fulfilling daily life. Everything you do, even scrubbing floors or polishing bolter shells, is suffused with purpose and prayer. If you're a fan of dry sarcasm, well, Soritas's life isn't exactly full of comedians. They're pretty earnest. But you might find a battle sister with a wry wit in your squad, trading darkly humorous remarks about the heretic's poor fashion sense as you charge into flamer range. But overall, expect lots of solemn conviction rather than witty banter. And honestly, that conviction itself is a perk. It gives you unshakable confidence. Fear is present, but their faith helps them master it. Death is likely eventually, but what a way to go if you do. The Soritas have a concept of the glorious martyr's death that they genuinely aspire to. Dying in the very thick of it, maybe holding a banner high while chanting the emperor's name as you're overwhelmed, or sacrificing yourself to save your sisters. These are considered blessings at the end of a Soritas's life. A cynical guardsman might say, sounds like a waste, but for a sister, that's the dream. To demonstrate ultimate faith, and if you don't die, you either become a veteran sister superior, training newbies and leading squads, or maybe join special units like Celestians, honor guards, or retributors, dominions, heavy and special weapon squads. There's even the elite Seraphim, sisters with jump packs who dual-wield pistols like gunsling angels from on high, flying through the air with twin-bolt pistols or inferno pistols blazing. That's a job perk for the particularly skilled. Let's not forget, outside of combat, sisters of battle sometimes get involved in interesting missions, escorting holy relics, guarding cardinals, or even investigative stuff, teaming up with inquisitors. They're not detectives, but if an inquisitor calls on the Ordo Hereticus Chamber Militant, which is the Soritas, to assist in rooting out a cult, you might do stakeouts, or sudden raids on heretic hideouts in Hive City depths, kicking down the door, shouting halt in the Emperor's name, and catching cultists mid-chaos worship. Extremely satisfying. To put it simply, being a sister of battle is one of the best jobs for a normal human, because it's one of the most empowering and honorable callings accessible. You're not a genetically modified super soldier, but you fight almost on par with them due to sheer faith and excellent training gear. You have the backing of the church, meaning you'll never go to war without fervent moral support and afterlife promises. And if you survive long enough, you could witness miracles, actual miracles. The Emperor has a habit of favoring the Soritas with the occasional divine intervention. As lore attests, if you don't survive, you die, knowing you served a cause unequivocally good from the imperial perspective, and your name might be remembered in the ecclesiarchy's roll of honor. And hey, dry sarcastic aside, you also get to prove that while Space Marines claim there's no such thing as a female artist, the women of the Imperium can kick just as much heretic butt without needing all those fancy gene seed tweaks. Just a bolter, some power armor, and a whole lot of faith. Eat your hearts out, Marines, malevolent. So if you're a devout soul craving battle, and you happen to be a pious young woman in the Imperium, I'd say toss your lot in with the Adeptus Soritas. It's a tough life, but it's one where a normal human can genuinely shine as one of the Emperor's avenging angels. And in a crapsack galaxy, sometimes that's the closest a person can get to pure, unfiltered righteousness delivered via flamer nozzle. Number 7. Imperial Commissar, Political Officer and Battlefield Motivator. Time to put on the iconic peaked cap, swish that long coat, and practice your best menacing glare. Coming in at number 7, Commissar of the Astra Militarum, Imperial Guard. In the Grand Army of Billions, Commissars stand out as a unique breed. They're not line troopers. They're the morale officers, the disciplinarians, the ones who ensure the fear of the Emperor and of themselves keeps the soldiers in line when things go south. As a normal human, becoming a commissar means you have authority and respect and fear far above your rank and file comrades. You literally have a license to execute cowards or traitors on the spot, and conversely the duty to lead by example in the direst situations. Why is this one of the best jobs? Because while it's deadly, it comes with power, prestige, and that satisfying feeling that you get to be the reason a regiment holds its ground and wins the day, or at least dies gloriously instead of routing. Dry sarcasm is practically a commissar's second language, right after high Gothic shouting. Just ask Commissarius Kane, hero of the Imperium. He'll quip his way through a firefight and come out decorated. So what's life like as a commissara? First, you're likely a product of the Schola Progenium, similar to the Soritas in that you were an orphan raised by the Imperium to be an exemplary servant. The scholar drills discipline, faith, tactical acumen, and all that good stuff into its students. The ones who show leadership and a certain steel-heartedness might get tapped for the commissariat. You basically learn to recite the infantryman's uplifting primer in your sleep, shoot a lap stall with uncanny accuracy and yell, "Not one step back," dogs from age 12 onward. You also study military history and strategy. A commissar is expected to be tactically competent. Sometimes they even take over command if the officers are incapacitated or, executed for cowardice. When you're assigned to a regiment, you arrive in crisp black and red attire, polished boots you could see your reflection in, your trusty bolt pistol at your side, and a chainsword or power sword for that extra flourish in close combat. The soldiers eye you nervously. Some veterans who've seen good commissars in action might respect you immediately. Others, especially conscripts, just see the Grim Reaper in a cap stalking them. And truth be told, part of your job is to be a little scary. You need the troops to fear you more than they fear the enemy. If they fear dying to or disappointing you, they'll charge those orc battle wagons. Even when every instinct says run, you're there to stiffen spines, plug fleeing backsides with a well-placed bolt round if needed, and embody the Emperor's will on the field. Now, smart commissars, the effective ones, know it's not just about summary executions, it's also about inspiration. You want the men and women to fight because they believe in victory, not solely because they're afraid you'll shoot them if they don't. So you give rousing speeches, cue the dry sarcasm and wit. A classic commissar move when facing impossible odds is to crack a one-liner like, "The Emperor has delivered us more targets than we have bullets. Truly we are blessed." The troops chuckle nervously, but it breaks tension. Then you follow up with a serious booming encouragement. "Stand firm. The Emperor is with us, and cowardice is the only unforgivable sin," etc. Good commissars like the famous Commissar Yarich become legends that guardsmen willingly follow through hell. Yarich, by the way, literally had an orc war boss rip his arm off. Then Yarich killed that orc, took its power claw as his new arm, and kept fighting. That's the kind of hardcore that sets the bar for commissars. It's an immense reputation to live up to, but if you manage it, oh boy, do you get street cred. Guardsmen will tell tales of your exploits around campfires. Some might exaggerate. You can kill a man by scowling so hard his heart stops. And who are you to correct them? Let the legend grow. On the day-to-day, you accompany the regiment on all deployments. In battle, you might attach to the command squad, or roam between units at critical points. Spot a squad wavering under a Tyranid onslaught. You sprint over, maybe your coat dramatically flowing behind. Climb on some rubble and shout, "Guardsmen, do you want to live forever?" Get back in the fight. Maybe cap it off by blasting a Tyranid creature through the skull with your bolt pistol for emphasis. 9 times out of 10, the troopers, ashamed and remotivated,
rally, and resume firing with renewed zeal. If one was actively fleeing and his panic is infectious, that's when the lethal
option comes. You might grab that coward by the collar, bark a condemnation, and execute him in front of his mates.
Harsh? Yes. Does it work?
Often, yes. The shock of it, and the knowledge that someone just got made an example of, tends to pull the rest in line. It's cruelty with a purpose.
In theory. Juice?
Between battles, you partake in the regiment's life, but are a bit separate from it. Officers are cordial, even differential to you, because you technically have authority to punish them too. Common troopers either try to avoid drawing your attention, or they secretly admire you, or both.
You don't do the grunt chores or manual labor.
You're busy writing reports to high command about the regiment's morale and reliability, or training with your weapons, or drilling the troops in marksmanship. A commissar is often an excellent shot.
Sets a good example if he can outshoot the platoon's best.
You also likely have to attend to any political education. That is making sure the regimental preacher and you are instilling the right imperial creed messages. If there's any sign of dissent, say soldiers grumbling about high command being incompetent, a wise commissar will address it early with a stern talk or a minor punishment before it furs into open insubordination, which you'd then have to handle more drastically. You likely have a few trusted adjutants or cadet commissars under you. If the regiment is big, training them in the fine art of carrot and stick is part of your gig. Some commissars, like Gaunt from the novels, foster genuine loyalty and camaraderie with the soldiers by caring about them, even if sternly, and not treating them as disposable. Others remain aloof and terrifying at all times. Style varies, but since we're evaluating this as a job, let's consider the best-case scenario approach, the Sir Faz Kane model. Kane was a commissar who, unknown to most, was actually a bit self-serving and just wanted to avoid dying. Yet by always trying to get himself and his troops out of danger alive, he ended up saving his troops repeatedly, being declared a hero, and the men loved him for always looking after them. He had a sardonic wit, the driest humor, especially in narration, and formed genuine bonds, at least with his aides like Jorgen, a whole other story. So, as a job, you could do much worse than being commissar. You travel extensively, get VIP treatment often when not in battle, and retire famous. A commissar's equipment is another plus. You get some of the coolest personal gear a non-Sith superhuman can have. A bolt pistol is a hand cannon that makes you armed like a one-man army. Each round can explode a target. Many commissars also carry a chainsaw or power sword. That combo, fancy sword and heavy pistol, is stylish and deadly. You usually get a customized carapace armor under your coat for protection, maybe a refractor field, a personal energy shield if you're high-ranking, and the hat. Oh, the hat, it's a silly thing, but that peaked cap with skull insignia carries so much authority weight. In the weird social dynamics of the guard, a commissar's hat entering a room can be felt before the person is even seen. Plus, it shades your eyes just enough to make your glare extra ominous. The coat, the hat, the confident stride. You have a whole vibe that sets you apart from the masses. That is objectively cool if you've got a flair for the dramatic. There are downsides besides frequent battlefield exposure and risk of assassination by your own side. Yes, some disgruntled soldiers might frag a cruel commissar in the night. One is the loneliness. You can't really have buddies in the regiment. Fraternizing too closely makes it hard to do your job if one of those buddies messes up. Could you shoot your friend in the head if you had to? That's why many commissars keep an emotional distance. It's a bit of a solitary life, moving from regiment to regiment. Commissars often get reassigned rather than staying with one formation forever, unless circumstances like Gaunt ghosts happen. But as a counterpoint, some do gain a measure of camaraderie, a mutual respect with the best of the soldiers. Ibram Gaunt, a commissar who was also given command of a regiment, turned his troops into basically his family, though that was exceptional. Travel and variety are inherent. You're not stuck on one world. You deploy wherever the guard goes. You'll see hive cities, desert battlefields, space hulks, alien worlds. If you survive a lengthy career, the sights and stories you'll accumulate are staggering. It's a dangerous galaxy, but you're going through it, in style and with agency. While a normal guardsman is a pawn, a commissar is more like a knight on the board, moving in interesting ways and sometimes taking out the bad pieces with a flourish. People might not like you, but they certainly notice you. And your actions can directly shape battle outcomes. A single well-timed execution or speech by a commissar can save an entire front from collapsing. That's heavy responsibility, but also something to be proud of, if done right. From a certain perspective, being a commissar is one of the best jobs, because it's one of the few where a normal human can exercise nearly unchecked authority on the battlefield and be relatively protected by the institution they serve. Most officers answer to someone. Commissars technically answer to the commissariat and indirectly to the Lord Commander and the ideals of the Emperor. But on the field, they can override even colonels and generals if they deem it necessary. That's an insane level of empowerment for a single person among millions of soldiers. If power appeals to you with all its burdens, this is it. Also perks. If a battle is won, the commissar often gets credit in dispatches for upholding morale. If a battle is lost, but you fought bravely, you rarely get blamed. They'll blame the general or the overwhelming enemy, unless you actually did something dumb, like kill a great officer out of pettiness and cause a collapse. The commissariat doesn't hang their own out to dry too often. In fact, if you survive particularly harrowing wars, you might get staff assignments as a senior political officer, training new commissars back at a scholar or something. That's a relatively cushy twilight posting. Regale cadets with war stories. Emphasize discipline, maybe write memoirs. Kane did, which is why we know how sarcastic he was internally. In terms of dry sarcasm, oh yes, the job is ripe for it. You often have that outsider observing the madness vantage point. Many a commissar thinks some variant of Emperor's teeth. These newly arrived conscripts look about as useful as wet cardboard. Better give them a rousing speech so they at least die in the right direction. They might not say it exactly like that aloud, but some are known to make cutting remarks. Commissar instructors especially will roast a sloppy cadet in front of others with blistering critique disguised as wit. If you have a sharp tongue, being a commissar means you can lash people with it, and they kind of have to take it, unless they want to risk being shot and insulted. It's a bully's dream, or a genuinely witty leader's outlet depending on your nature. To wrap up, commissar one of the best jobs, because you're basically the military police, plus motivational speaker, plus executioner bundled into a figure that in the eyes of common soldiers is as iconic as any war hero. You carry the weight of the Emperor's authority on your shoulders and a bolt pistol on your hip, and can turn the tide not by superior firepower, but by sheer force of will. If you're brave, iron-willed, and maybe a tad bit crazy, there's no better post for a normal human to influence the course of epic battles. Just try not to become a sociopath or catch a stray bolt from behind. Keep one eye on the enemy and one on the coward near the back. Your job is to deal with both. Challenging, extremely rewarding in its own grim way. Absolutely. Remember the unofficial commissar motto: shoot the coward for the Emperor will know his own. It's tongue-in-cheek. They don't actually say that often, but it captures the gallows humor and resolve you'll need. If that appeals to you, welcome to the commissariat. Number 6. Imperial Military Commander, General, or Admiral. If you've ever played regimental-level war games or shouted at a hollow map, "I could win this fight if he were in charge," then perhaps climbing the ranks to become an Imperial Guard General or an Imperial Navy Admiral is your calling. Now I know what you're thinking. Being a high officer is less a job and more a position you reach after long service. True, but hey, someone's got to sit in those command bunkers and flagships, and it can be a normal human. Not all generals are nepotism nobles, only like 80% maybe.
We're lumping these together as Imperial Military Commander because whether you lead armies or fleets, the role has similar perks. You're the one calling the shots. It's one of the best jobs because frankly, you have power and relative safety compared to the poor sods you command. You get to shape wars rather than just be a statistic in them. There's certainly pressure and danger. Foes love to kill or capture enemy leaders, but you're not typically in the mud with a bayonet. You're behind a hardened wall of armor or void shields moving the pieces on the grand chessboard of war. And if you're competent or lucky, you might even get remembered in the annals of Imperial history as the hero of a crusade or the savior of a sector. Let's split it briefly. As a general guard, you likely came from either a noble background or rose through the ranks via a combination of skill and extreme survival ability. By the time you're a full general, or Lord General, or even Lord Solar, the highest title like the legendary Macarius, you've seen dozens of battlefields and somehow kept your head literally and figuratively. Your day involves a ton of planning and coordination. You have a staff, colonels, aides, stratagem officers feeding you intel. You're in a command, Leviathan, a big mobile fortress tank, or a secure bunker. Do you have a plush chair? Possibly, honestly, one of the best perks of being a general, an actual chair and desk, maybe even an administratum served to make you recaf. Let's be real, in 40,000, that's high luxury. You oversee multiple regiments, meaning tens of thousands of troops, armored columns, artillery batteries, air wings, the works. On a strategic holo map, you get to move unit markers and say cool stuff like, commit the reserve Bane blades to the western front. Have the Cadian 122nd pin the orcs while the Valhallan armor swings around. It's all very grand. When battles rage, you're watching from a command post via picked feeds and Vox reports. If things go well, you get the credit. If things go poorly, we'll try to find a scapegoat or hope a commissar doesn't decide. You're the reason for failure, but being in charge means you can attempt to shape the narrative. Many a general has screwed up only to write the after-action report, painting themselves as a misunderstood genius and their sub-commander as the real problem. And guess what? They often get away with it, because the higher-ups on Terra rarely investigate deeply if a war is ultimately won. So you have, dare I say, a politically safe position compared to the frontliners. Generals in 40K can also be proper celebrities to their troops and worlds. They do parades, wear impressive medallion-festooned uniforms, give speeches to motivate the masses before a big fight, etc. If you like a bit of showmanship, you can indulge, soldiers of the Imperium. Tomorrow we face the foe. I expect each of you to perform your duty with the same honor as our ancestors at the Battle of Thunder Ridge. Remember, victory for the Emperor is its own reward. But I'll also see that the regiment, which takes the enemy's banner, gets a week extra furlough. Cheering ensues, morale bumps up a notch. A good general knows it's not just strategy, it's also keeping the war machine's human element tuned. One undeniable perk of being a planetary or sector-scale commander, quality of life between battles. You might get to quarter in a governor's palace, and he's obligated to host and pamper you. You outrank him in war matters. Fine foods, local delicacies, actual wine instead of boot beer, and admiring
Staff catering to your needs. It's a far cry from the trenches. Some generals even bring personal attendants or chefs from their home world if they're fancy. When traveling between war zones, you ride in a general's designated ship, not a sardine can troop transport. You might have a stateroom, perhaps not lavish by peacetime standards, but compared to a guardsman hammock, it's heaven. A private cabin, your own wash basin, maybe even a bookshelf of tactical tomes for leisure reading. As an admiral, navy, much of the above, but in space. You command a fleet from the bridge of a capital ship. Imagine standing on the command deck of an Emperor-class battleship, looking out the viewports at the endless void, or more often staring at a holothic tactical display of blips. When battle comes, you issue orders like, All ahead full, bring us broadside to target. Launch attack craft, prepare torpedoes, and for the love of terror, somebody get me firing solutions on that Chaos cruiser. The ship hums with activity. Hundreds of officers and ratings enact your commands. In the Navy, an admiral's lifestyle can actually be quite stately during warp transit or between fights. These ships have officer mess halls, observation decks, maybe even a gallery with artworks, or a small arboretum for crew R&R. Some flagships do to keep crews sane on long voyages. You, as admiral, have the captain's luxurious quarters. The captain graciously moves out for you if you're above them in rank. That could mean a multi-room suite with a viewport, a fine oak desk that's been on the ship since the Horus Heresy, and a private servitor or two to bring you your Amisec nightcap. You'll host war councils at a big table with star charts. Have the ship's choir sing the Imperial anthem when you depart, dock, all that pomp. In battle, admirals do run risk. Ships explode, after all, but you're in the most fortified position of the most fortified ship if you're the fleet commander. Unless the enemy specifically focuses your flagship or boards it, you might not personally be in harm's way. If boarded though, time to grab a pistol and rally the naval armsmen to repel boarders. An admiral isn't too proud to shoot a traitor in the face if they break onto his bridge. Successful admirals like legendary Lord Admiral Spire or others get system-wide renown. Planets under your protection hail you as a savior. If you break an Orc blockade, there's a bit of a rock star element arriving at a naval port. The crew lines up for inspection. The planetary governor holds a banquet in your honor with fine delicacies and a performance by the local symphony, etc. It's good to be the admiral. The combination of privilege and impact is why being a high military commander is on this list. Unlike a middling munum scribe, as a general or admiral, you can really change things. You might save 1 million lives by deploying forces cleverly to minimize collateral damage, or evacuating a colony world just in time under your fleet guns. People under your command depend on you, and if you do well, they love you for it. There are Imperial Guardsmen who'd follow a beloved general through the eye of terror itself, because he's proven he cares for his men and wins battles with minimum unnecessary loss. Sure, some generals are incompetent buffoons, the kind of aristocrat who's all polish and no substance, but those tend not to survive many real wars or they get sidelined. The ones who last and climb high often have some merit, or at least surround themselves with competent advisors. Hey, delegation is a skill too. Now, one must mention a bit grimly that if you fail catastrophically, being the one in charge is rough. The Imperium doesn't do gentle firings. A defeated general might be executed by a commissar or inquisitor for losing a key planet, or an admiral who retreated too readily could be shot for cowardice or demoted to scrub decks on a penal ship. You're gambling with high stakes, win big or literally lose your head. But if you're going to take risks, better to do it from the command bunker than the suicide charge, right? Most generals aren't out front at the tip of the spear, unless they're cut from gaunt or Macarius cloth and enjoy leading assaults. They usually only fight if the HQ itself is attacked. So comparatively, yes, safer. And here's a fun perk. As a top commander, you often get spoils of war or tokens of esteem. Liberated a Forge world, the Magos might gift you a custom-crafted power sword inscribed with binary prayers as thanks. Saved a shrine world. The Ecclesiarchy's cardinal might present you with a personal Rosarius force field generator, blessed by the Archdeacon himself. Even outside gifts, the Imperium will equip you well: artificer armor, masterwork weapons, maybe even a refractor field or digital weapons for personal defense. You become a walking armory of reliquary gear. It's good to not die. They want you alive because training a replacement is hard and the troops trust you, so they'll give you nice things to help you not die. Let's not forget, if you're extraordinarily successful, you might transcend job into legend. The Imperium remembers Lord Solar Marius as one of its greatest conquerors. They still talk about his campaign centuries later, and the territories he added are called the Marian Sector. They erected statues of him on worlds he never even visited just because the idea of Marius inspired them. As a normal human to be almost deified like that, short of official sainthood, which is more for religious figures, though they do overlap. Sometimes that's unique to these upper echelons. You can't exactly become a legend as a hab loader or a manufacturing line worker, but a general very possible. Granted, you got to not screw up massively, but with some cunning and luck, you'll retire with chestfuls of medals, maybe a noble title or two. Many high commanders who survive long enough get seats on planetary ruling councils or even at segmentum command staff, shaping overall strategy. That's essentially joining the quasi-aristocracy of the Imperium. For a commoner who enlisted decades ago, that's a heck of a career trajectory. There is paperwork though. Let's be clear, after every battle you're signing reports for the Munitorum, requisitioning replacement troops and ammo, writing letters to the families of fallen officers, or having your aide do it, etc. There's bureaucratic sludge, but by this stage you have adjutants to handle a lot of it, and just give you the summary to sign off. Honestly, the Administrum tries to bury you in admin trivia, but an old trick is to offload as much as possible to a regimental scribe or deputy, and focus on the parts of command only you can do. Strategy, key leadership decisions, dealing with any political clout. Many generals also know how to play the game to keep the Imperium's higher-ups off their back. Give enough success and proper tribute, like sending glory stories back to segmentum command, or tithing appropriate loot to the lords, so that no one questions your methods. All told, being an Imperial general or admiral is one of the best jobs because it's the pinnacle of where a normal man or woman can reach in the most important institution of the Imperium, its military. It combines authority, relative comfort, respect, and the opportunity to shape history. Sure, a bad day could see you court-martialed or killed, but a good day might see you win a war and have an entire continent cheer your name. If you have ambition, this is the brass ring to chase. As dryly as one might put it, in the grim darkness of war, it's far better to be the one sending divisions over the top than the poor sod going over the top. From your lofty vantage, you might even crack a sarcastic joke to your staff as the battle unfolds. If those fools keep charging the enemy lines like that, I'll have to give myself a commendation for bravery by proxy. They chuckle nervously since you're the boss. You sip your recaf, adjust your cap and watch the plan. Emperor willingly by come together. Grab that baton of command, friend. You've earned it, or at least falsified the merit papers convincingly. Onward to victory. Number 5. Cardinal of the Ecclesiarchy, High Ecclesiastical Leader. Now we're getting into the really cushy territory. Imagine a job where you wield enormous influence, are draped in finery, have legions of followers hanging on your every word, and yet you don't have to charge at anything shooting at you. In fact, others will gladly interpose themselves to keep you safe. Welcome to being a cardinal of the Imperial Church, one of the top-ranking clergy of the Adeptus Ministerium Ecclesiarchy. In the Imperium, religion permeates everything, and the ecclesiarchy is powerful. As a cardinal, or any high ecclesial official like a pontifex or archdeacon, you essentially live like a combination of medieval pope and feudal lord. This is one of the best jobs because it's relatively safe, unless a heretic assassin slips through, or a mass uprising happens, which is comparatively rare for individuals. Usually the mobs are on your side. Incredibly prestigious and, shall we say, materially comfortable. Let's set the scene. You are Cardinal Dominus Smith. Maybe you took a more fancy name upon ascension, like Cardinal Elucidator of the Fifth Catechism, Dominus Aurelius, but we'll keep it simple. You oversee the ecclesiarchy's affairs in an entire sector or segmentum. That means hundreds or thousands of worlds look to you for spiritual guidance. On your home base, likely a grand shrine world or a major civilized world, you reside in a palace cathedral.
Picture towering vated ceilings, stained glass windows the size of hat blocks depicting imperial saints, incense burners the size of trucks swung by scepter cherubs. You have an entire retinue of lesser priests, administrators, choir singers, servo skull assistants, not to mention a small army of attendants to handle your day-to-day. You probably don't dress yourself. A literal acolyte puts your ornate robes on each morning and adjusts your jewel-encrusted mitre hat. You dine on fine foods offered as tithes by agri-worlds, grateful for the Emperor's blessings. If you're into dry wit, maybe you have a confessor or aide who can trade quips with you about the day's sermon. Did you see old Pius nodding off during my homily? Perhaps next time I'll emphasize the fire and brimstone. Your responsibilities include leading huge mass services on holy days. That might mean addressing a crowd of 1 million pilgrims in a plaza via vox amplifiers. You raise your hands ringed with gold and holding a rosarius, and the masses fall silent in reverence. You speak every word carefully crafted, maybe a little fit and archaic, because the faithful love that, and you literally move hearts and minds. If a cardinal calls for a war of faith, basically a crusade launched for religious reasons, volunteers by the millions will pick up arms, all because you said so. Now you coordinate with the local authorities. Usually can't just go on crusade without letting the governor know, lest you disrupt things too much. But by and large, your authority in spiritual matters often bleeds into temporary ill. Many planetary governors will bend over backward to please a cardinal. After all, you have the ear of the populace. If a governor annoys you, you could hint in your next sermon that some leaders lack faith, and suddenly that governor has unrest brewing, so they treat you extremely well. A day in the life could start with morning prayers in a private chapel, maybe just you and a handful of closest clergy chanting in high Gothic, while an organ servitor plays, then breakfast served on silver platters. Mid-morning you meet with your diocesan administrators about various issues, which shrine should get funded, which preacher to send to a troubled world, reviewing reports of heresy in some province. You might authorize the local Furteris militia or Adeptus Sororitas to intervene if needed. With a stroke of your quill you can dispatch forces to purge sin. Heady stuff. Lunch might be a meeting with an off-world delegation, say a rogue trader who's come to petition for a church license on a newly discovered planet, bearing lavish gifts hoping to win your favor. Yes, bribery, but couched as pious donation, and you smile benevolently, accept the relic or gilded icon, and promise to consider their request. Afternoon.
Maybe you preside over a ceremony, unveiling a new statue of Saint whoever in the city square. The locals cheer your name as well as the emperor's. You raise a hand in blessing. Hundreds faint from the ecstasy of receiving a direct benediction. An overeager, devout citizen might rush up trying to touch your robe. Your bodyguards, perhaps Sororitas sisters or fanatical temple guards, gently but firmly intercept. You nod that it's all right, and let the wide-eyed woman kiss your glove. Later, your aides bring you documents to sign. Formal beatifications of some martyr here, approving the budget for a new ecclesiastical school there, pardoning a minor heresy after appropriate penance, etc. You do so from a luxurious high-backed chair at a mahogany desk that might itself be a relic from ancient terror. You might have the opportunity for more carnal or worldly indulgences. Let's not pretend all high clergymen are pious. 24/7. Historically, in the Imperium, there have been some very corrupt cardinals looking at you. Goje Vendia, though he was also the ecclesi-wise ones, keep any excess discreet, but a clavish feast here. A personal choir singing you to sleep there. It's available, however many cardinals actually are true believers, and do practice some degree of asceticism. Despite the opulence around them, they might eschew excessive of personal luxury. Sleep on a simple cot, fast twice a week, wear a hair shirt under the fancy robes as a sign of humility. But even then, that's their choice. It's this stool safe and supportive. You're not starving or in rags unless you choose to be. And these stalls the key perks. Almost no one wants to kill you personally, except serious heretics. In war, you're a valuable person to protect, not target. Enemies might try, sure. Chaos cultists would love to sacrifice a cardinal. Or Xenos might think you an important head to remove, but you typically have a series of protectors. The Adeptus Sororitas particularly often guard high ecclesiarchy figures. If someone tries to assassinate you during Mass, they'll have to contend with power-armored bodyguards, disguised as choir singers. That hymn singer next to you could whip out a bolter the moment a threat emerges. And unlike a general leading troops, you are not expected to fight. You can. A cardinal might carry a chainsword or a fancy Arcotech las pistol if they're more militant-minded, but it's not really in the job description. So, physically, it's one of the least dangerous positions around such high authority. Your influence on society is massive. With a word you can incite a holy riot or calm one. You can uplift a nobody to local sainthood status by acknowledging their miracle, real or presumed. People send you flowers, offerings, letters begging for blessings or miracles. You can't answer them all, but you have underlings for that. In essence, you're treated like a living saint by many. It's good for the ego. If you weren't humble to start, this could go to your head. But it's also, from a certain perspective, a pretty sweet deal for not a ton of hard work. Sure, you have responsibilities, but you're not toiling in a manufactorum or slogging through mud. You're writing sermons, attending ceremonies, giving orders to clergy. Mentally taxing perhaps, but physically light. And when you travel, say to Terate, for a cine, or to another planet on a pilgrimage, it's all first class. You get a whole retinue aboard a chartered ship, a comfortable stateroom, honor guards, perhaps even a personal chef servitor. On arrival, the local authorities line up to greet you with pomp and ceremony. Red carpet rolled out, literal or figurative, planetary defense forces saluting. It may be a parade in your honor, if it's a big public visit. Or Cardinal's visit is a huge deal to a world. It's like the Pope visiting times 10. Now, caution. The Inquisition monitors the ecclesiarchy for corruption or heresy. If you start, say, taking bribes to grant absolutions or preaching doctrinal deviations, you might get a knock on your door or a bolt round through your skull from afar. So, one of the hidden job requirements is to not overtly go against imperial creed, but as a cardinal, you help define that creed. Minor local variations or emphasis are at your discretion. Only if you go really off-script, like proclaim some new god or deciding the emperor isn't divine, something major, will you face the full wrath. And you're likely too pious for that anyway. So, you know which side your bread is buttered on. Praise the emperor, stick to doctrine, and you're fine. If you have a cynical streak, you might privately know you're pushing superstition or controlling the masses with faith. But you'd never admit that, and perhaps don't even think it. Many cardinals truly believe everything they say, which makes them all the more powerful as leaders. What about dry sarcasm within the cloistered inner circle? Sure, perhaps as you review a long-winded draft of a sermon by a junior priest, you sigh and quip. He managed to mention the emperor 47 times, but not once advised the crowd to pay their temple tithe. I must remind him of the practicalities of devotion. Your inner circle chuckles dutifully. As a public figure, though, you probably keep sarcasm out of sermons. The masses might not get it. But behind closed doors, some cardinals may indeed have a wry outlook on how the Imperium works and joke about it with trusted confidants, the absurdities they see, the bureaucratic nonsense, etc. It's lonely at the top, so a sense of humor helps in private. In conclusion, being a cardinal or high ecclesiarchy official is top tier for a normal human because it combines power, luxury, influence, longevity, and relative safety. You're essentially feudal royalty with divine mandate. People literally worship, or at least deeply revere you. You have political sway too. High lords of terror include the ecclesiarch, the head of the church. So your organization is right at the heart of imperial governance. Even a cardinal can call upon resources, raise militias, request sororitas support, lean on local guard for help, etc. under the auspices of maintaining the faith. The only tricky part is balancing piety with not stepping on inquisitorial toes and avoiding scandal. But if you keep it righteous, or at least appear to, you can enjoy a long life of significance. And at the end, maybe you'll even be declared a saint. Your bones turned into holy relics in gilded reliquaries for millennia. Talk about a post-retirement honor. From humble preacher to planetary spiritual overlord. As career paths go, this one's golden. Literally, your throne in the cathedral is probably gold-plated. If you can secure this gig, you've basically won the 40,000 life lottery without being a genetically modified soup or something. Burn incense, wear nice robes, and let the choir sing you to sleep. You, dear Cardinal, have it made. Just don't go heretic. That tends to end poorly. Number 4. Magos of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Tech priest, inventor, lord. Ever wanted to replace your weak flesh with sturdy steel? Dreamed of understanding technology so deeply you practically commune with the machine spirits? Welcome to the cult of the machine. Becoming a moose, a high-ranking tech priest of the Adeptus Mechanicus, is one of the best gigs for a human because it offers something no other job does. The chance to transcend human limits without breaking the Imperium's rules. These are the scientists, engineers, and technomstics of the Imperium. As a Magos, you wield knowledge, or at least a lot of formulas, and half now, that most humans can't even fathom. You also get to do really cool things like replace your limbs with multi-tools, plug your brain directly into cogitators, and say fancy barrack prayers while appeasing a plasma reactor, and people respect or fear you for it. Plus, the Mechanicus is basically its own mini-empire within the Imperium, with enormous influence. If you become a top dog in that hierarchy, you can have entire Forge worlds at your command. Let's break down why being a tech priest Magos is a sweet deal. First off, job environment. You're often on a Forge world or in a ship's engine room or a tech monastery. Environments filled with industry and gadgets. If the idea of endless factories and server stacks horrifies you, skip this one. But for tech-minded folks, it's paradise in a way. You have access to laboratories, manufactoria, maybe even vaults of ancient standard templated constructs, STC fragments. You're encouraged within doctrinal limits to tinker, to repair, to invent. That's rare in a stagnant Imperium. Sure, true innovation is mostly taboo, but innovation defined as figuring out how old tech works and maybe recombining things under strict guidelines is basically what advanced tech priests do. The creativity is more like extreme problem solving within set boundaries, but it's more stimulating than, say, reciting the same creed every day. Sorry, ecclesiarchy. As a Magos, you progressively shed your frail human body and become more machine. To many, that's horrifying. To a Mechanicus adept, that's the goal. Why worry about back pain or hunger or pesky emotions when you can install reinforced vertebrae, run on internal power cells, and dampen your emotional centers with a logic processor? By the time you're a full Magos, you likely have a mess of mechanodrates, robot arms sprouting from your back. Your face might be mostly a mask with glowing optical sensors, and your voice may come out in a synthesized monotone or a cloud of codec count. And you love it. You look in the mirror, or rather sensor check your chassis, since who uses mirrors now, and see efficiency, strength, perfection. It's the ultimate transhumanist dream, except couched in mysticism. The flesh is weak, the machine is pure, so you voluntarily get to do what any augment-happy cyberpunk fan would love. And it's your revered duty to boot. On a personal living note, tech priests aren't big on creature comforts like plush beds or gourmet food. Many have eliminated the need for sleep with electroosmosis, rest or replaced eating with direct nutrient paste infusion. But their quarters often have cool stuff like data ports everywhere, pieces of ancient tech to study, etc. And if you like solitude, Mechanicus life is fine with that.
You might spend weeks alone in a lab with only servo skulls humming around, and nobody's going to barge in saying, "Hey, social interaction time." They'll leave you be until you produce results, or show up to chant in the sacred foundry ritual now and then. Authority-wise, the Mechanicus runs all technology and manufacturing in the Imperium. As a Magos, you might be the overseer of a forge temple or a research unit. Lesser tech priests obey you. Servitors, mindless cyborg workers, literally plug into your commands. If you're a Magos Dominus or something, you might command Lictio Cybernetica units, battle robots, or Qatari cohorts, Mechanicus cyber soldiers. Tech priests aren't supposed to be super militant, but quite a few are. They have their own armies, Titan legions, etc. So while a cardinal has soft power over hearts, you have hard power, control over the lights, the guns, the ships, the Titans. There's that famous phrase, the Adeptus Mechanicus can make or break a crusade. If a fabricator general, top Mechanicus boss on a world says no tanks for you, that guard army is stuck fighting with sticks. So even if not, everyone trusts the Colkers, everyone needs them. And that need translates to deference. Imperial Guard generals tread carefully around Mechanicus Magi assigned to their force. Planetary governors give you wide berth, lest you turn off the planetary fusion reactor accidentally and plunge their hives into darkness. Intellectual fulfillment. If any job in the Imperium has research and development, it's this. Sure, it's wrapped in incense and ritual rather than clean scientific method due to cultural superstition, but at the end of the day, a Magos can spend years poring over an STC printout or fiddling with a Xeno artifact if radical enough to unlock its secrets. The quest for knowledge is literally their religion. The Omnissiah, Emperor in his aspect as machine god, commands them to seek the divine knowledge. So if you're the type to ask, how does that work? You get to actually pursue those questions within limits. But still, other jobs demand blind faith or brute force. The Mechanicus, ironically, fosters curiosity, albeit
Controlled curiosity. Stray too far, and you become a tech heretic. But Amaros can actually revel in the discovery of a new old technology. The sheer triumph when, say, you find a lost STC template for a new variant of Lass's gun that's 1.5% more efficient. That's your moment of ecstasy, the kind that an ecclesia would get from a miraculous vision you get from Blueprint Eureka, and you'll get credit for it. They might name it the Smith pattern last gun after you. Tech achievement is one of the few non-combat glories a normal human can get with their name attached. Lifestyle and longevity augmentations often extend life, or at least the functional lifespan. Some magi are hundreds of years old, sustained by mechanical organs and nano-repair systems, so you could enjoy centuries of productive work and life beyond normal human limits. You might go a bit balmy after so long, but by then you have mostly robot parts, so who cares? Also, since you can back up data, some magi even flirt with a form of immortality by turning themselves partly into machine data. Not full AI forbidden, but like your memories stored in a coitator. So if your body is destroyed, another tech priest can recover some of you. In one extreme case, a magi's named Belisarius Cole basically did something like this to live 10,000 years with some odd side effects on his personality. But hey, 10,000 years as a top scientist. Beat that, normal humans. Another perk, gadgetry. You have personal gear that is high-tech where everyone else is trudging with flintlocks. Exaggeration, but you get it. Need to open a door? You have an electrograph key in your mad dendrite that can hack it. Need to interface with a machine? You literally plug into it and commune. Your robes likely conceal multiple tools and weapons. A voltage probe that doubles as a shock stave, a laser cutter, maybe a concealed needler. Plus, mechanicists are often allowed to wield weird exotic weapons of their own make, like an arc rifle or a phosphor serpent, a pistol, things not common in the Guard. So even though you may not be a soldier, you're rarely defenseless. Not to mention having a few custom combat servitors at your side. Cybernetic bodyguards with implanted weapons, ready to shred any threat. Walk around with those lurching behind you, and see who messes with the Mechanicus guy. Answer: basically only the Inquisition, if they suspect tech heresy. They're the Mechanicus' only real check. And if you haven't broken the rules, even the Inquisition tends to bargain with Magi, rather than kill them outright. They need their expertise too. Humor in Mechanicus can be dry indeed. Imagine two tech priests observing a malfunctioning coitator that an uninitiated fleshling fiddled with. One turns to the other and monotones. It appears this device has been subjected to extreme percussive maintenance by unqualified personnel. The other responds in binaric screech. Translated, truly the Omnissiah tests my patience with the ignorant. That's a tech priest joke, complaining about lay people messing up machines. They might not belly laugh unless they've installed a laughter emulator, but trust me, in their minds that was a zinger. If you as a person appreciate snarky comments about how illogical or inefficient things are, Mechanicus is rife with it. Usually couched in code or high Gothic metaphors, Chaffee's Kane novels for instance, had tech priests who delivered some wonderfully snide lines in a perfectly deadpan praise the Omnissiah manner. Downsides: the Mechanicus does have internal politics. Different factions like those who want to innovate versus strict orthodox who want zero change. If you fall on the wrong side, colleagues might sabotage you, literally or figuratively. Also, a laboratory accident can be fatal. Tech priests sometimes unleash something they can't control, be it a volatile invented weapon or a bit of silica animus AI that goes rogue. But if we're comparing jobs, this risk is maybe comparable to a chemist's lab. Mishap, not massive artillery barrage, killed my whole squad like in other jobs. So relatively still better. One unique plus: as a Magos, you can end up working on projects that affect the entire Imperium's future, e.g. developing a new type of starship engine, or analyzing a Tyranid biosample to find a countermeasure. You're at the cutting edge, such as it is in 40K of human endeavors. The sense of purpose can be immense if you truly love knowledge. And the Mechanicus will fund crazy big projects, building a new Titan pattern, exploring a death world for ancient tech, etc. They have resources, rivaling any institution, aside from maybe the Astra Militarum. And often those resources are at a Magos' disposal, if they justify it as pursuit of knowledge. Want to lead an explorator fleet beyond known space to search for the lost vaults of Moravec? If you convince the fabricator general, boom, you have a ship and crew assigned. Off you go on a tech treasure hunt. That's an adventure a bureaucrat or even a regular officer wouldn't get. It's more akin to rogue trader life, but with a more academic spin. So summing it up, Adeptus Mechanicus Magos, one of the best careers, because you get to cheat human limitations, long life, mechanical strength, etc. Wield significant influence. Control of tech equals control of everything. Enjoy a modicum of safety. Few want to shoot the guy who knows how to fix the life support systems and intellectually engage with the mysteries of the universe, even if you call it appeasing the machine spirits. Plus, if you've ever wanted to say jargon, like Collator Unit 7C2F approaching binary singularity, rerouting logic circuits now while sparks fly and alarms blare, this is definitely the job where that happens on a Tuesday. Embrace the binary. Number 3. Planetary Governor. Imperial Planetary Ruler. Have you ever looked at a map and thought, I could run that entire place better than those in charge? Well, as a planetary governor, you can put your money, or rather the administrator's money, where your mouth is, and likely live in obscene luxury while doing it. Being a planetary governor is basically being the king, queen, or autocrat of a whole world under the distant supervision of the Imperium. It's feudal as heck. For a normal human,
This is one of the absolute best positions to be in because it means power, wealth, comfort and longevity, provided you don't massively screw up and invite inquisitorial or space marine wrath. Think about it. You have a palace. You have servants by the thousand. You can declare a public holiday on a whim because you fancy a parade in your honor. And every person on the planet has their life influenced by your decisions. On the downside, heavy lies the head that wears the crown. If you fail the Imperium, they can and will remove that head. But many governors manage to skate by with a mix of competence and back-channel bribery to superiors, enjoying decades of rule that any hedonistic Roman emperor would envy. Let's set a typical scene. Your planetary governor, Alicia Doe of Jagan Prime. You likely got this post through inheritance. Maybe you're from an old noble family that's been governor for generations, or as a reward for military service. Lord General Doe saved the sector. Here's a planet to retire on. Either way, the day the administratum recognized you as governor, you leveled up to demigod status in local terms. You reside in the governor's palace, which could be a literal palace, a hive-spire penthouse, or a fortified mansion depending on the world's style. This residence will have the finest materials, marble from off-world quarries, rare hardwoods, gilded Aquala symbols everywhere. You have a private cadre of bodyguards, perhaps a brigade of the PDF, Planetary Defense Force, is assigned solely to your protection, as well as a small court of advisors, ministers and civils. A morning might begin with exotic fruits from 3 continents, laid out by your chefs while you scan a data slate of the day's agenda. Maybe a meeting with the administratum tithe officer to discuss how you'll meet the new troop levy. Then an address to the consortium of guilds to calm them about new production quotas. Later a ribbon cutting at a new manufacturer. Great press opportunity, and ending the day with a grand ball at the palace. To honor and visiting Navy Admiral, you have to be a mix of politician, autocrat and cheerleader for the Imperium's demands. It's a stressful job in terms of responsibility. An entire world's productivity and order rests on you, but you have layers of subordinates, department heads, local enforcers for law, etc. PARs handling the nitty-gritty. You just set the high-level policy and intervene on big issues. Meanwhile, you enjoy all the perks of royalty. Is the weather hot? Your palace has climate control. Maybe even a weather manipulation array over the capital that you quietly order to ensure sunshine for your garden party. Hungry? The finest chefs on the planet, or imported from off-world cook your meals. Bored? Perhaps your world's culture offers entertainments. You can command the best performers to put on a private show. If you're morally loose, it's not hard to have a harem or whatever equivalent suits your fancy. Just don't flaunt anything heretical or against imperial creed. Essentially, anything that can be had on your planet can be yours by request or command. Remember, the common folk practically worship you, sometimes literally, if they're superstitious enough to conflate your authority with the Emperor's divine mandate. They line the streets to cheer when you show up publicly. They hang your portrait in municipal buildings next to the Emperor's. In some far-flung worlds, they might even half-jokingly pray to you for leniency or aid. Careful with that. Officially heretical to treat a governor like a god, but in practice, little cults of personality happen. Smart governors either discourage it or quietly enjoy it without letting the ecclesiary notice. As for dry sarcasm, you might need it in dealing with imperial bureaucracy. Picture receiving an administratum communicate that your planet's grain tithe is increased by 5% this year. You roll your eyes and mutter to your chief of staff. Ah yes, because last year's bumper crop wasn't backbreaking enough. Perhaps they think I can conjure agro products. Exilo, your staff snickers. Mild treason to laugh at the administratum's expense. But in private, who cares? Or when a pompous trade envoy from another world drones on at dinner, you might interject with a cutting remark disguised as polite banter. Being the boss means you can get away with a level of snark, as long as it's not aimed at the Emperor steps that others can't. Because who's going to correct you publicly? No one on planet outranks you. Only an off-world inquisitor or a visiting segmentum official could pull that, and they aren't around day to day. So you can develop a bit of an indulgent, witty persona if you like, and people will laugh even if you're not funny because you're the governor. It's like being a celebrity and dictator all at once. However, you do have obligations. Primarily, meet the tithes. If the Imperium demands X number of guard regiments or Y tons of ore, you must deliver. How you do it is up to you. You might need to impose heavy taxes or forced conscription on your populace, which can cause unrest. So part of the job is juggling keeping the Imperium happy and your people from revolting. Many governors use a carrot and stick, enforce rules harshly, but also sponsor grand circuses, literal or figurative, to plate the masses. The monthly hive carnival might be your idea to blow off steam so they don't riot about food rationing. And if something truly bad breaks out, say a chaos cult in a city, it's on you to suppress it quickly, likely by calling in the Arbites or God and cracking down brutally. If you fail and it escalates too far, that's when Inquisitors or Space Marines intervene. And trust me, if outsiders have to step in to fix your planet, your tenure is probably over, if not your life. So responsibility is immense. But here's a cynical but realistic angle. Many governors, especially hereditary ones, are mediocre, but they often remain in power because the Imperium doesn't care as long as tithes are met and open rebellion is
avoided. If your planet is meeting quotas, higher authorities might not scrutinize that you siphon some resources for your own enrichment, or that you maintain a private villa on an ocean moon with taxpayer money. They only care if you start failing in your duties or openly defying imperial law. So you do have leeway to be, well, a bit of a corrupt monarch as long as you don't skimp on the emperor's share or do something blasphemous. For example, there have been governors who quietly underreport production, so they keep an extra 2% of output to trade via back channels to rogue traders for personal luxury imports. Not exactly loyal, but as long as no one finds out and the tithe still seems correct, they get away with it. Or they might allow some under high vice rings to run as long as those bosses pay kickbacks to the governor's treasury, which he then uses to fund a splendid new planetary cathedral with his name prominently displayed as patron. That's the type of acceptable corruption that often goes on. In terms of job security, it's quite secure as long as nothing catastrophic happens. Many governors rule for decades until they die of age or illness, at which point their heir, usually their eldest offspring, takes over with imperial sign-off, which is usually a formality if the family wasn't screwing up. Some lineages have kept governorship for thousands of years. That's stability no common worker has. You basically have a guaranteed top position for life, unless you personally implode or an external disaster, invasion, etc., dethrones you. And if something like an invasion occurs, guess what? You can call for aid. You don't personally have to fight, though some do take command of defense. You send astropathic pleas by orcs need assistance. If reinforcements come and save the day, you'll of course credit the Emperor and Imperial forces, but you'll also likely remain in charge after, albeit maybe under closer watch. If all goes well, you survive crisis and get to host victory parties afterwards. Public adoration. On Imperial holidays, you might stand on your palace balcony with a Vox amplifier and lead the masses in a prayer or pledge of allegiance to the Emperor. They cheer for you as the local face of Imperial authority. It's a massive ego boost if you have an ego. Some try to remain humble, but it's hard when you have 1 million people chanting your name. Quality of life. Just to reiterate, it's top tier. You essentially have the entire planet's resources at your disposal. Want a lake redirected to create a moat around your summer home? It shall be done. Fancy a rare piece of art? Commission the best artist on the planet. They'll be beyond honored. You don't even really need money. The economy is kind of your plaything, though. You maintain a treasury for state functions which you can dip into for expenses. That might coincidentally be a new personal armored limousine or such. There's a reason many governors get decadent, and frankly quite out of touch with common folk. They live in a bubble of privilege. All told, planetary governor is one of the sweetest positions a regularish human can hold, because it's one where the world revolves around you. Literally on your planet, you are the center of power. The weight of the Imperium above you is immense. Yes, but you're their duly appointed agent, not a peon. They mostly leave you to it as long as you deliver. It's like being a feudal king under an emperor. Pay your tribute, keep your land in line, and you can rule as you please. Medieval kings had it good by historical standards. Well, an imperial governor is that multiplied by 1,000, and with far better tech and medical care to boot. Just heed this advice when you utter your dryly sarcastic quips about the administrum or the latest pompous ecclesiarchy envoy behind closed doors. Make sure the Vox thief servitors aren't listening. Wouldn't want a recording of you saying the high ecclesia can kiss my planetary backside making its way to Terra. Discretion is the better part of valor, dear governor. Besides, you can always vent by raising taxes on that annoying cleric's favorite merchant guild. Who's going to stop you? Congratulations, Your Excellency. Enjoy the throne. Just check it for assassination devices now and then. Number 2, Rogue Trader. Independent charter-bearing explorer. We're nearly at the pinnacle. For number 2, we step outside the usual imperial chain of command and into the void of adventure. Rogue Trader. If the Imperium were a rigid classroom, a rogue trader is the kid with a hall pass that says allowed to go anywhere, do anything, within vaguely defined limits. They are individuals and families, dynasties given a warrant of trade, an ancient legal document personally signed by the Emperor or the High Lords that grants them license to operate beyond the normal boundaries of imperial law. They can explore unknown space, deal with aliens, claim new worlds, build private empires, all while technically being loyal servants of the Imperium. It's the ultimate mix of entrepreneur, privateer, explorer, and noble. For a normal human, being a rogue trader is arguably the most exciting and liberating job possible. It's so good that honestly it was a tough call not to put it at number 1. But we'll get to why. Number 1 edged it out. Why is Rogue Trader so fantastic? Freedom. Virtually no one in the 40,000 universe has real freedom. Everyone answers to someone and is confined by all sorts of rules. Rogue traders, though, operate on the fringes, where they can often literally do as they please, as long as they don't directly betray the Emperor. They are the only humans allowed to fraternize with Xenos pragmatically for trade or treaties, to travel outside charted routes, to even have their own warp-capable ship and private army without being part of the Navy or Guard. They're like semi-autonomous mini-factions. Picture your life as a rogue trader. You probably inherited the warrant. They tend to be passed down generations. Some warrants are ancient, dating back to the Great Crusade. Or perhaps you were granted one for some extraordinary service, rare in modern times. You have a void ship, maybe a cruiser-class vessel, or a unique ancient ship loaded with character and weaponry. This ship is both your home and tool. It's crewed by thousands who are your crew, loyal to your dynasty first, Imperium second. Often a rogue trader's crew includes a weird mix. Family members, hired plasma gunners, and navigators, got to have one to warp travel, maybe an on-retainer tech priest, possibly even some alien helpers. Gasp. You could have a Kroot mercenary hunting beasts for you, or an Eldar ranger ally who pops by with cryptic advice, or an Ogryn bodyguard you picked up somewhere because you can. It's all very pirate, meets merchant meets explorer. One day you're charting a new warp route around a stellar disturbance. Risky, but if you succeed, you can sell that chart to the Navy for major thrones. The next day, you're orbiting a newly discovered world of pre-industrial humans, deciding if you'll open negotiations to bring them under Imperial protection and skim a profit in exporting their unique spices. A month later, you might be engaging in a battle with Void pirates, where you, with your slightly irregular but heavily modified ship, come out on top and claim their salvage as booty.
You don't really have superiors in the moment. There is an office of the administratum that monitors rogue traders loosely, but unless you do something outrageous like openly consort with known Imperium enemies, like forming a pact with Chaos or selling weapons to orcs, you won't see an Inquisitor or Arbites breathing down your neck. If you do skirt the edge, you often can talk your way out or bribe someone. Your wealth and usefulness makes authorities treat you with gloves. You're often out of communication anyway. So by the time the Imperium hears you did business with some fringe Xenos and they send a stern message, you're already light years away exploring a new sector. Materially, being a rogue trader is off the charts. You're effectively a multi-trillionaire by our standards if you're successful. Plunder, trade profits, mining rights on new worlds, all funneled to your coffers. You maintain a private army of mercenaries or household troops. You wear a cloak of alien silk, a power sword at your hip, a bolt pistol custom etched with your family crest. You might have a pet tigress, some exotic off-world feline lounging in your lavish captain's quarters. When you dock at an imperial port, you're greeted like visiting nobility, because you are. Technically, rogue traders are given titles and ranks that put them in the peerage above most planetary governors. Even they answer only to the highest bodies. People whisper of your exploits with awe or envy. Beyond wealth, adventure is the key perk. No 2 days the same. Many rogue traders keep diaries that later become sensational readings in the court, borderized of heretical or too sensitive details, of course. For instance, rogue trader Janice Drake exploring a Blackstone fortress full of bizarre alien labyrinths. That's an adventurer life. Or rogue trader Winterscale, who allegedly carved out a little empire in the Halo Stars region, complete with battles against rival traders and bartering with mysterious Xenos for ancient tech. One might call it the romantic job of the Imperium. Sure, it's dangerous as hell. You could jump into a system and need something that disintegrates your ship before you can say void suit. But the potential upsides, riches beyond measure, personal glory, even discovering a lost human colony and getting it named after you are enormous. Also, you can bring family and friends. Many rogue traders have their spouse, siblings, or trusted comrades aboard and make it a group venture. Not much other high job allows that. Try taking your family to work in the Inquisition. Not likely. It can be a family business that actually means something on a galactic scale. One day, you might be hosting a banquet on your ship for a sect of Eldar corsairs, negotiating passage through their region in exchange for some rare Promethean fuel. That's insanely out of bounds for normal Imperials. But part of the job, there's a skill to it. You have to be savvy, brave, and cunning. If you are, you thrive. If not, you die or lose your warrant to poor management. But hey, fortune favors the bold. If you have a dry wit, it probably serves you well dealing with the myriad personalities and cultures you encounter. Maybe an orc freebooter clumps onto your bridge in a parley. Instead of fainting in fear, you quip, "Our Captain Gitz Marsha, I see you've elected not to use the cleaning station. My crew will be mopping your footprints for a week." The orc roars with laughter, thinking you've got guts, and thus respects you enough to hear your trade proposition. Say you're tricking him into taking faulty guns in exchange for human prisoners he captured. Rogue traders need that bravado and humor to navigate the absurdity and danger out there. To the Imperium's billions, rogue traders are like folk heroes or boogeymen, often both. Some people hardly believe you exist because your life is so far removed from their drudgery. Others dream of signing onto a rogue trader crew to escape their fates. You represent something rarely seen, freedom and possibility. There's an old axiom. Rogue traders are the finite emperor given exception to remind mankind that not all boundaries are walls. The Imperium can't be flexible except through agents like you who operate in the gray areas to get things done that rigid bureaucracy cannot. So sum up, you have a void ship, essentially your own Millennium Falcon or USS Enterprise, but gothic and grimdark. You have a letter that says, "Get out of jail free," mostly. You can become as wealthy and powerful as a minor star king, and you see sights no one else may ever see. You might die horribly in the vacuum of space, or at the claws of an alien horror sure, but so could any guardsman on a battlefield. And they won't be doing it with a chalice of a Mississippi retort on their lips. In short, it's the ultimate risky live life to the fullest job for a human in 40,000. Why isn't it number one then? Because at number one, we have something even more absolute in authority, if not in personal freedom. But if your measure of best job is
maximum personal freedom, excitement, and profit, or rogue trader wins hands down. For many, that's the dream. To be untethered by the usual chains of the Imperium, to roam and thrive by your own wits. It's arguably the envy of many on this list. If you get the chance to be a rogue trader, take it and don't look back. Just keep an eye out the viewport for Tyranids. Running into a hive fleet unprepared is a rough day at work. Set course for the Halo stars and remember the unofficial traitor motto: fortune favors the bold and heavily armed. Number 1. Inquisitor, agent of the Emperor's Inquisition. Here it is, the top of the top. If all the previous jobs had big authority or perks, none quite matches the sheer autonomy and power vested in an Inquisitor of the Imperium. Inquisitor. The word itself strikes fear and awe across the galaxy. These are the Emperor's ultimate sanctioned agents, endowed with the authority to investigate, judge, and execute across all branches of the Imperium. High Lords tremble when an Inquisitor shows up unannounced. Planetary governors snap to attention. No one outside the Emperor's throne-bound self is truly above an Inquisitor scrutiny. They are outside and above normal law. They are the law in a very real sense. For a normal human, becoming an Inquisitor is like being elevated to demigod status in influence terms, not literal worship. You answer only to the Emperor and perhaps fellow Inquisitors. In rare cases, you have court blown to do whatever you deem necessary to protect humanity. Whether that's commandeering a starship, ordering an orbital bombardment on a city, declaring exterminatus on an entire planet. Yes, they can and do that. Or executing a sector governor for heresy. It's an immense burden, yes, but also the broadest license to act one can imagine. If best job is measured by how much you can shape events by your will, Inquisitor wins by miles. Let's walk through the life of an Inquisitor. First, you don't sign up for this job. You're chosen. Often plucked from being a top-notch acolyte assistant under an older Inquisitor. Or an Inquisitor dies, and in their last breaths knights you to succeed them. However it happens, one day you go from being a competent agent with backup to being the one in charge. Usually by then you have experience, resources, and allies. But now the rosette, the inquisitorial seal, is yours. And with it all, doors open, or you break them down. As an Inquisitor, you likely align with one of the major ordus: Hereticus, dealing with heresy; cults, internal threats; Xenos, dealing with aliens; or Malus, dealing with demons and the supernatural. This determines a lot of your workload. Ordo Hereticus might see you traveling hive to hive, snuffing out cults, vetting planetary governors for hidden heresy, etc. Ordo Xenos could have you secretly colluding with a rogue trader to gather intel on a new alien species, or working with Deathwatch Space Marines to eliminate a gene stealer's infestation. Ordo Malus has you in the high-stakes realm of demonic incursions, often accompanied by Grey Knight Space Marines for the heavy stuff. Whatever the specialty, you're always dealing with the worst of the worst threats, but you have the means to handle them, or at least try. On a typical case, suppose you're Inquisitor Helena of the Ordo Hereticus. You receive word that a cult of the Tainted Saint is spreading on Sigma Ultravum. You arrive in the system. No one stops your ship because your credentials clear anything. Landing on the planet, you might adopt a disguise, or come openly, up to you. Sometimes inquisitors go incognito to suss out problems. Other times, they make a grand entrance to shake the trees and see what falls out. Let's say you go covert at first, dressed as a merchant or a random adept. You wander the streets, your psychic aura. If you're a psyker, many inquisitors are low-level psykers. Feeling the tug of warp taint, you find evidence, strange graffiti, a fearful confessor hinting at deviance among the nobles. You gather your retinue. Ah, yes, one of the best parts. Inquisitors keep entourages of skilled specialists. You might have a burly ex-guardsman as muscle, like the famed Ibram Gaunt had Bragg, or Saphir's Kane had Jürgen, a tech priest to handle coitators, a Shurian for autopsies and healing, perhaps even a sanctioned psyker or a repentant heretic who now aids you. You are the spy master and team leader in one. With their help, you uncover the cult's leaders. Time to make a move. You could alert the planetary governor and command his troops. Flash your rosette and say, "By the authority of the Inquisition, I commandeer your elite guard. We have a heresy to crush." He'll jump and salute. No hesitation. Cooperating with an inquisitor is one of those do-or-die things for officials. Alternatively, you could use subtlety. Maybe you found out the governor's son is in the cult, so you keep him in the dark and instead whisper to the local Arbit's chief judge to gather a force. Or call down a platoon of Sisters of Battle from the nearby convent to assist. Inquisitors have that pull. A quick astropath message and the Seratas will come if able. However you do it, you orchestrate a takedown, storming the cult meeting at midnight. Your retinue in the lead. Bolt of fire. A brief intense fight. Perhaps a summoned minor demon is there. You personally duel it, your sanctified power sword versus its claws, and banish it with a cool one-liner like "back to the warp with you." Tell your foul master, we're coming for him next. Dry humor even in the face of horror. That's an inquisitor for you. When dawn breaks, the heresy is purged. You publicly burn the cult leader, and some members got to make a statement. Absolve who can be absolved. And then maybe you move on, or you stick around to mentor the new ecclesia on how to prevent such cults, or to investigate if the taint ran higher up. The point is, you came, you saw, you conquered, and you did so with near total independence. No one on that planet would dare question your methods. If the governor's son indeed was guilty, and you executed him, the governor can only grit his teeth and accept it. You might even eye the governor and say, "I find your household lacks in spiritual vigilance. Rectify it, or I shall return for a less cordial visit." That guy will have nightmares about you for years, but also likely improve things. Between missions, what do? Some inquisitors study. They have vast collections of forbidden tomes and alien artifacts locked away. You might retreat to a safe house or inquisitorial fortress and pore over that chaos. Grimmar you seized trying to glean intel on the next threat. Others are more active, hopping from crisis to crisis. The job is what you make it. You decide what cases to pursue. You have leads coming in via a network of informants, perhaps acolytes you left planted in various institutions. You triage and act as you see fit. There's no monthly report to send up, except maybe to your Inquisitor conclave, but that's more like comparing notes at a convention than answering to a boss. If you join one of the inquisitorial factions, that might influence your focus. Ig. Monodominance. Want to eradicate all mutants Xenos/Psychers aggressively, whereas Xenos Hybris faction might study aliens more. But those are personal leanings, luxuries, not your focus, but you can have them. If you want, you have authority to requisition pretty much whatever. If you fancy a nice estate as your cover identity, you can seize a heretic's mansion after you kill them and use it as a piece. The Inquisition has funds taken from heretics,
or secret imperial tithes to supply their agents, so you travel often in a well-equipped ship. Some inquisitors have personal ships with loyal crews. Others hitch rides with navy or rogue traders by pulling rank or making deals. Your gear is top of the line or even unique. Power armor fitted under a cloak, master-crafted weapons, digital laser rings, psychic-focused talismans, etc. You often also hold influence. If you call up a Space Marine chapter master to assist, many will heed an Inquisitor's request, depending on circumstances. There's a story in lore. An Inquisitor once demanded an audience with Logan Grimnar, Great Wolf of Space Wolves, and basically bossed around a room of Space Marines to get info. And they let him, albeit grumpily, because that seal he carries grants him that privilege. Personal satisfaction. If you're a control enthusiast, or truly devoted to protecting humanity, this job is immensely satisfying. You directly remove evils that others can't touch. You see the hidden mechanisms behind events. You get to delve into mysteries. It's like being a detective, judge, and special forces commander all at once with a splash of scholar. It's dangerous, unbelievably so. But that's why Inquisitors often have a certain fatalistic humor. They face down demons with a stoic or sarcastic quip, because if you can't laugh at the insane danger, you'll go insane yourself. It's number one because no other job lets a human exercise the Emperor's will so freely. Even a governor has to worry about the Inquisition. As an Inquisitor, you are the worry. You roam where you want. You command who you want within reason. If you misuse authority stupidly, other Inquisitors will call you out, which is perhaps the only check, but that's rare. Mostly they leave each other alone, or cooperate on big threats. So you're in an exclusive club of a few hundred, 000 folks in an empire of trillions, who can say, "I'm doing what I think is right for the Imperium," and have it stick. In a possibly dry remark, an Inquisitor might summarize their job as solving the Imperium's problems, one execution at a time. Dark joke, but not inaccurate. If that kind of gallows wit and unilateral power floats your void ship, you won't find a better role. Finally, consider longevity. Inquisitors often have access to rejuvenati treatments to extend their life, their valuable assets. Some live centuries, especially if they avoid direct combat and use brains and agents more than brawn. So you could enjoy a very long career of being the ultimate busybody in everyone's business. For the Emperor, of course, it's not a peaceful life. There's no retirement unless you fake your death, or do the old pass my title to a successor, and quietly advise or fade away, which a few do. Most die in the line of duty, or get killed by something too strong or cunning. But if any position encapsulates the Imperium's purpose, defending mankind from all threats in one person, it's the Inquisitor. For that reason, we've placed it as number one. Not because it's easy. Oh no, it's extremely perilous. But because it's supremely important and empowered. What more could you ask for in a job? One day you're incinerating a daemon host while quoting the Lex Imperialis. The next you're sipping recaf in a cloaked observation post, watching a suspected governor, deciding his fate with a stroke of your quill or pull of your trigger. It's never boring, often rewarding to your sense of purpose, if not always materially, and definitely the most impactful path a human can walk. And if anyone out there has a complaint about you, well, you could always declare them a heretic. Just kidding, mostly. Conclusion. In the grim darkness of the far future, most people live short, brutal lives with no say in their fate. But as we've seen, there are exceptional roles where a fortunate or formidable individual can rise above the bleak baseline. From the quiet power behind a clerical desk, to the thundering dictate of an Inquisitor's decree, these top 10 jobs are the rare glimmers of privilege and purpose in an otherwise uncaring Imperium. Each position came with its unique flavor. The administrator who swaps danger for drudgery, the Arbeits officer who is the law,
the Sorata's sister whose faith burns brighter than any flamer, the commissar turning fear into courage on the battlefield, the general or admiral commanding legions among the stars, the cardinal guiding billions of souls and enjoying a nice cup of amizek, the techmagos pushing the boundaries of human-machine symbiosis, the governor living like a king while balancing duty and indulgence, the rogue trader sailing uncharted voids with the devil may care grin and a profit ledger, and finally, the Inquisitor, humanity's grim guardian, shouldering the heaviest responsibility with an iron will and a loaded bolt pistol. Best in the 41st millennium, of course, is a relative term. None of these jobs is easy. All carry weighty expectations and lethal dangers. But compared to being hive worker number 198,445, dying namelessly in a factorum, these are golden tickets. They offer a chance to shape your destiny, and the destiny of others rather than being just another cog in the great imperial machine. Reaching any of these positions typically requires a mix of talent, opportunity, and sheer luck, or the Emperor's blessing, as most would frame it. But the fact they exist is in its own way a beacon of hope. They show that even in an empire as regimented and oppressive as the Imperium, there's room, however small, for a person to rise and excel, to carve out a life of significance, maybe even comfort. That's something for the everyday citizen to hang on to in their prayers at night. The thought, however faint, that they or their children might be plucked from obscurity to serve in a higher, better capacity. Of course, not everyone can be a rogue trader or inquisitor. If everyone was special, no one would be. These roles are vanishingly rare, but that's what makes them the pinnacle. They are the lofty spires at top, the mountain of humanity's hierarchy. From below they might seem unreachable, but we have shown they are indeed attained by some flesh and blood people. And if you, dear reader, found yourself in the 41st millennium with ambition burning in your heart, now you know what heights to aim for. Perhaps you'd gravitate to the command and camaraderie of a general's life, or the autonomy and adventure of a rogue trader's voyage. Maybe the ironclad righteousness of the Sorata's calls to you, or the shadowy authority of the Inquisition. Whichever it would be, one thing's clear. Not all fates in the Imperium are equal, and some, a very select some, are downright enviable by 40,000 standards. Anyway, so as we conclude this journey through the best jobs in the Imperium of Man, take a moment to appreciate that even in a galaxy defined by war, there are positions defined by agency. The administratum clerk finds safety in servitude. The governor finds meaning in leadership and luxury in palace life. The Inquisitor finds purpose in protecting mankind at any cost. Each, in their own way, is a story of a human rising above the grinding tide of grimdark to hold a bit of their fate in their own hands, and often the fates of countless others too. In the end, whether you're inspiring a regiment, or interrogating a heretic, managing a planetary economy, or dueling an alien warlord, the key is that you're making a difference, for better or worse, and in a future where the average person feels like a tiny, helpless cog, that is a gift beyond price. The Emperor protects those who serve with zeal and ability, and in these jobs you'll need plenty of both. Aim high, citizens of the Imperium, and maybe, just maybe, your name will be on a list like this one day. Until then, keep your head down, do your duty, and pray for that lucky break. After all, in this universe, fortune favors the faithful, and sometimes the crafty, the bold, and the ruthless for the Emperor. And may your own path lead you to glory, or at least away from an ignominious